today. We also have Jamie here with us who is moderating. So today we're going to be looking at an overview of Google Classroom. We're also going to look at the Quality Matters rubric. So Google Classroom is a learning management system. This is going to be something available to all of the ABE funded programs around the state under the nmdelt.org domain. I will have some more information later about how you can access this. So just be aware everything I'm showing you today you do have access to. Once I've given a brief overview of Google Classroom, we're actually going to get into the classroom. I'm going to show you a class that I've made, and within the class that I've made in Google Classroom is where we'll be exploring the Quality Matters rubric. I'm going to go ahead and tell you Google Classroom is a similar concept to Blackboard in terms of the learning management system. Just please understand going in, this is different than Blackboard. There are going to be some pretty key differences here. It's a little more limited in what it can do. However, I've been on the Google forums quite a bit, and Google is constantly working to improve this. So I think Google Classroom, while it's something relatively basic now, I think it's going to evolve into something very big, something just as capable of Blackboard, and it's already quite capable. So let me show you what we're going to do to get into the classroom. So I'm going to open a new tab here, and I'm going to go to google.com. So this is all through Google Classroom. Something really great that Google is doing these days is they're making all this software for free that used to be very expensive. So for example, Microsoft Word, a relatively expensive program, there's now a free version of that available through Google. That's Google Docs. Within that, you have the equivalent of Word, you have the equivalent of PowerPoint, Excel, all these things. There are video editing things that are free in there. There are free versions of Photoshop, and again, they're a little bit more simple than the version you pay for, but they're actually still quite good. So logging into Google Classroom, what I have to do here is go to Google and log in. So up here, if you click, you see I'm logged in here as clifton4 at nmdelt.org. I was hoping to walk you through the entire login process. However, if I sign out, I'm automatically kicked out of the webinar. So typically you would have something up here, and so this little blue icon that would say sign in. You would click sign in, and then it would have you sign in with your nmdelt.org account. So Google Classroom is not something that's just free to anyone. It is only free if you can demonstrate that you are tied to some sort of educational institution. So therefore, to access this, I believe really the only route is going to be to get an nmdelt.org email, and we will be providing you that here at the end of the webinar. So I log in. It would give me a sign sheet. It says please enter your email, please enter your password. I log in, and it's going to take me back here to Google. So you're going to see this very same thing that I have here. So in order to get into Google Classroom, I'm going to come up here and type in classroom.google.com. Now, if you type this in and you're not signed into a nmdelt.org or another educational institution account, it's going to tell you, sorry, you don't have access to Google Classroom. I am signed in, though, so I'm going to hit enter, and it's going to take me into my classroom. So here it is. So here is my Google Classroom. Again, I can only access this because I'm under the nmdelt.org domain. So right here, what I have are my classes, and one thing that I really like that it does is it color codes. So over here, I've got the Delt Quality Matters training. As you notice, there's no students in here because I haven't allowed anyone to enroll yet. And there is an upcoming assignment in here in terms of the second step, and we'll see that here in just a little bit. I also have some of these Play-Doh trainings going on over here. This one on the right I want to highlight is our Delt Play-Doh certification. We're working on Play-Doh on demand certification. It's not a finished product yet. It's actually going into beta testing this Monday, and so I'm hoping we'll have that live for the entire state very soon. That'll be a way to get certified Play-Doh where you can start and stop, where you can really work at your own pace. I think it will be a very good thing. But for now, we're going to go into the Delt Quality Matters Training Classroom, and so I'm going to click up here. So we come in here to the Delt Quality Matters Training Classroom. If you notice up here, I have Delt New Mexico kind of highlighted, and I have all of these other people that are invited. These people are the other Delt master teachers. I actually just invited them to co-teach this class with me. That essentially gives them administrative functions here in the classroom. They just haven't accepted yet because I believe I just sent those invitations this morning. So I'm going to come down here, and you notice I'm under my stream. We have stream, we have students, and we have about, and we're going to go into what those different things are right there. But down here, this is the stream. This is essentially everything that's going on in the class. And so it starts from the bottom and works its way up. Personally, I would prefer to start at the top and work down, but that's kind of how Google Classroom is set up. As far as we can tell, we haven't figured out a way to make it go from the top to the bottom. So it does go from the bottom to the top. You notice here I said start here, overview of Google Classroom. Now if you notice, I set this up as an announcement. We're going to have two different key functions here within the Google Classroom. We will have the assignments. Notice up here, the overview of quality matters, I put in an assignment, and it actually has a due date right here of August 14th. Whereas down here I created an announcement, and if you notice on the announcement there's no due date. So essentially what I did is I created where the Google Classroom overview is something that doesn't expire. It's something students would have access to all semester, whereas this is going to be more of an assignment. There's going to be a deadline, and they won't be able to get back in after that deadline. So we're working in the stream here, and again we have announcements and assignments, and what you do within the announcements and assignments is you link to Google Documents. So Google Documents encompasses a lot of things. It encompasses Google Docs. It's very similar to Microsoft Word. There's Google Slides. That's very similar to PowerPoint. And then there's Google Forms. Google Forms is excellent. If you're not familiar with it, I would suggest getting on YouTube and searching Google Forms, get a little idea about it. So what I've done here, I have this announcement here for the overview of Google Classroom, and then I've actually attached a Google slideshow. I actually initially created it in PowerPoint. You see there where it says the PPTX, but it actually does a very good job of converting back and forth between the Google format and the PowerPoint format. So I'm going to go ahead and click that and open it. And so here's my PowerPoint in a preview mode. And if you come down here on this one, you look and I can see my entire PowerPoint. That's because this is a pretty short presentation. It's only 4 slides long. You'll see on the next one that it's a little bit longer, and so you're not going to be able to see that entire thing in the presentation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up here to open with, and I'm going to open it with Google Slides. This is going to allow me to present this as an actual slideshow, whereas I can't do the actual slideshow back there in the preview mode. So see, I come over here and it goes ahead and moves it into Google Slides. Again, this is essentially equivalent to Microsoft PowerPoint. And one thing I do like about Slides over PowerPoint, if you notice, I'm still in my browser. I'm still within the Google Chrome window here. And that's really great because this isn't a huge thing downloaded to my computer like PowerPoint would be. So several advantages to the Google software. So I'm going to come up here to View and go Present. And we now have my presentation. And so this is something you could have for your distance learning students. Have them go view the presentation, maybe give them a little short quiz over it afterward. So this is our student engagement series.
Cash, I apologize. We cannot see your screen again.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can fix that. Did it just recently go down?
Just now, yes.
Okay. Can you see it now?
No.
Okay. Good rule of thumb with technology, always expect glitches.
Yes.
Keep that, keep that in the back of your mind. You have to be a little more flexible with students on technology because they're going to run into glitches. You want to have a clearly stated policy on how you handle glitches is actually one thing I'm going to talk about today. So let's see, I reshared my screen. Can you see it now?
Yes.
Okay. Let me get here into the presentation again. So again, I'm going to go View and Present.
It disappeared again as soon as you hit present. That is so strange.
So there was a very short moment there where there was a black screen. Let's give it a second. Has anything come up now?
No.
Okay. So that tells me I'm not going to be able to go into full screen. That's really interesting. I wonder if it's connected to the glitch we're having here over on my presentation. So I just won't do this in full screen. Let me stop sharing. And come back in here and screen share again. All right. Jamie, do you have a visual on my screen again?
Yes.
All right, fantastic. So I will stay out of present mode. I'm not quite sure what is going on there.
I'm not either.
So Google Classroom, just go over kind of quickly what it is. It's a learning management system, as I mentioned earlier. Who can use it? Really, anyone can use it. Anyone associated with an educational institution. NM, funded teachers and students all are able to get access. And to request access, you're actually going to email jamie@nmdelt.org. So this is a tool that you can use for your distance learning students as well. So you would contact jamie@nmdelt.org for that. So now I have a brief video that I'm going to show you. This is about a little over a 10-minute video. It's going to give you an overview of Google Classroom, and I think it's just absolutely fantastic. And so I am going to provide everyone with a link to this here at the end of the presentation. Since I'm not in present mode, I am going to just have to copy and paste the link up. I'm going to highlight this Randy Sakes. I'm probably mispronouncing his name. He's actually doing this YouTube presentation. He has awesome tutorials on Google Classroom, so I highly recommend his YouTube. So let's see. No, that's not what I wanted. This way. YouTube.com. Google Classroom. 96, and there it is. And I am going to leave it out of full screen mode since we do seem to be having the issue with full screen.
Hello there everyone, and welcome to an introductory video outlining some of the neat things we can do with Google Classroom and getting it set up to you so that you can go ahead and get started with creating your classrooms. What we're going to cover in this video is just a quick introduction on how to create a class, and the ways that we can work within the class, and then finally wrap up with, I think, a really neat way that we can use functionality of Google Classroom to have information we want students to have readily accessible, available, and easy to find. When you connect into Classroom for the first time, it's going to be through a website, classroom.google.com. And when you connect, you're going to see this blank window. You're going to see the blank slate in the background here because we haven't yet created a class. I'm going to close this window just to check into another account that we're going to work with to see how it will look a majority of the time for you. This is an account we have put together that has one class, and we're going to create a second one. To create a class, on the top right-hand corner, just to the left of your name, you'll see a little plus symbol. Clicking on this allows us to either create or join a class. If you don't see the option to create a class, please let us know. We'll go ahead and make sure that you have the ability to do so. We're going to create this class again by simply clicking Create Class. And with that,
I do want to take just a moment to say, if you ever do run into issues in Google Classroom, please be sure you contact one of the Delt team members. That can be Jamie, that can be myself, that can be any of the team members.
a dialog box is going to come up, giving us the option to go ahead and to create a class. We can pick a class name as well as a section. The class name is required. The section you can use to help break up a class. Now, this might be, why would I want to break up a class? You can create a class however you would like. And at some lower grade levels, this might be the class that you create is just for your classroom. And you'll only have one class. As you move up in grade levels, you might have a class that's called 7th grade science. And we might have multiple sections. These sections could be period 1, period 3, period 8. Sections just help us create a class and help it be easier for us to find.
Working within the Plato system, it might be helpful to group by learner level, have sort of a low level, a mid level, and a high level class group. And that way you can be working within the various functions of Plato with those users.
Call this period 1. And we're ready to create the class, we can click on Create. I do want to mention that when you create classes, you may wonder, well, creating 3 periods means to post an assignment, I have to go to 3 different classes to put those in place. And Google has made it really nice and really easy when working with announcements and assignments to select a checkbox to pick which class we want to post them to. That means if we were to post homework that we wanted all periods to have, period 1, period 4, and period 8, we can create that assignment or announcement, select the checkbox, post it as period 1, period 4, period 8, and that one post goes to all 3 classes automatically. We're ready to create our class. Click on Create, and you're going to be taken directly into your class. Now, one of the first things I do when I get into a class is I change the class theme. Google gives us a couple of choices that we can use to update our class theme. The question here might be, why would I want to change the class theme? What I like about changing the class theme is as I start working with more and more classes, I have a color that's assigned to that class, making it very easy to visually identify this class and know which one I'm working in. You'll see when you connect, and after we've changed this theme, the stream. The stream is going to be where you post announcements and assignments to your class. As you add more content, you'll see that the stream will get longer and longer and longer. You do have the ability, after you post some information, to go ahead and edit or delete it. To delete or edit an item, to the right, you will see 3 dots stacked upon each other. You can click them, select Edit, maybe I had a typo when posting this, or delete it.
Kind of random, but this is something I just recently learned about. I guess when you see a menu with the 3 dots like that, the term for that is hamburger menu. So that's kind of new on me.
Deleting announcements just helps make the stream be a little clearer. It helps get rid of unused or information that isn't relevant anymore. You can always keep the information as long as you would like. There's no limitation on how long you can keep it. But I just think it's a neat way that we can help tidy up the class so old information, maybe from the first week of school, that we don't need anymore, doesn't show up and kind of clog up this interface. The next area is students. And this is where, as a teacher, I can see the list of students enrolled in my class. So the question we have here is, how do we enroll students in a class? And there's 2 ways. One is to click the Invite button and search for their names. If I wanted to add these students, I can click a couple of checkboxes, click Invite Students, and these students are now enrolled in my class. Now, the downside to this is it's a very manual process. It does require going ahead and adding these students by hand. Another option is using a class code. When students connect in the Drive and then they go into Classroom, again, that same address, classroom.google.com in the web browser, they can enter and join a class simply by entering in this class code. For me as a teacher, this makes it very easy because all I need to do is share this information with the students and they can go ahead and add themselves in.
Just let everyone know my preference on this kind of thing is to have the students actually physically in class if possible to register, and then just give them the class code there. If you are doing any kind of distance learning thing, I do recommend the class code over adding the students individually. I think that it becomes a little cumbersome to enter them individually, and it's also kind of nice to put a little bit of responsibility on them. Say, hey, you need to make sure that you get into this class, but they're going to make sure they have the technical skills for it, make sure they have the support they need.
As students enroll in the class, you'll see them appear in this list. And for some reason, if the student were to share their class code with a friend who isn't in this class, you can always select the student, click Remove, make sure that we want to remove or uninvite them from the class, and that student is no longer enrolled in the class. Let's say my class is done here, all 2 students have enrolled. I can disable the class code, and that means no new students can join utilizing that class code. I would have to add them in manually. Again, this is just a quick way to really see how we can add students into the class and work with it. The last spot I want to hit is under the About tab. This is where we'll have the ability to title our class. Again, I'm going to call this 7th grade science. And if you wanted to add an optional description about the class, you can do so. If there's a classroom you meet in, you can post that there as well. Again, just to have some information ready for students that may not know or tend to be forgetful. Another neat aspect about Google Classroom is how it helps us with organization. You'll see there's a Google Drive folder link that I can click on. We'll take a look into Drive to see how this gets created. As soon as I go into class, when I create a class in Classroom, Google Drive automatically creates a folder called Classroom.
If you're not familiar with Google Drive, you might think of it in terms of the My Documents folder on your computer. Just instead of being physically located on your computer, it's more of a virtual thing housed by Google for your files.
Within each Classroom folder, we'll see a folder for each class. And as you'll see, this is matched. 7th grade science, period 1, to 7th grade science, period 1. Since it is the beginning of the class, I don't have any assignments put in yet. When we go into the specific class folder, we won't see anything. As I assign assignments to this class, from the teacher, I'm going to see a folder for each assignment. And within each assignment folder, I'll see all the students' assignments. From the student perspective, I'm going to see this exact same layout. I'll see a folder for Classroom. I'll see a folder for 7th grade science, period 1. The only difference here is as a student, I'm going to see, first off, only my work. And second off, I'm going to see all the assignments I've put together for this class. That just gives a nice, easy way that Google Classroom helps organize the information so we don't have it scattered throughout our drive. The last area that I want to talk about is under the About section, adding materials. And I really like the materials section as a way that we can post pertinent information that we'll want the students to access all quarter long, all class long, all semester long. When we post into the stream, we're going to have announcements and assignments that will slowly move content lower on the page. The materials page is just going to have a list of all the materials that I feel are important as a teacher for this class. This can be, for example, the document the class puts together on classroom rules. What we're going to look at here is class notes. And one thing that you're probably thinking about class notes is, well, they change. How do we work with posting information that's going to constantly be changing with the class? We're going to jump back into my teacher drive, and I've created a folder called Class Notes. Inside of it, I've put together one sample, August 18th class notes. And obviously, as we work with this, we're going to get August 19th class notes, August 20th, 21st, and we're going to have a long list of information. Now, if you remember, we have the ability to work with shared folders. We're going to use that ability of working with shared folders to post classroom notes so we don't have to create and constantly update them as the teacher. And they're going to be easy to access and find as a student. We're going to share this folder, and as you remember, when we share content, it's going to be private, only me, and those individuals I grant access to. We're going to change the permission on this to be people at Glencoe District 35 with the link can view. I'm going to save these options. I'm going to copy the link for this folder. I'm going to go back into my class, and I'm going to use the ability for class notes to attach a link. I'm going to paste in the link we just grabbed, which is again a link to the shared folder that everybody with the link can view. Click on Add and Post. Now what we've done here is we've created a folder called Class Notes that as we add information to it, individuals will be able to view. Within our classroom, we've posted material of our class notes that's going to be a link to that shared folder. The great part about this, as a teacher, as I add those shared notes into this folder, students can click on it, and we'll get a list of all the class notes from the class. The great part is I don't need to worry about sharing those individual files because I've worked with it on the shared folder level. Another nice part about this is I don't have to worry of the content getting lost in our class stream. It's going to be in the About section, always there, always accessible. If you want to add additional content, you can go ahead and do that by adding a file from your computer, a file from Drive, or a link. We hope this is helpful to kind of give you a quick view on what you can do with Google Classroom and getting it set up initially. We're going to have some additional videos put together on working within the stream, and sharing other ways we can use Google Classroom for grading and providing student feedback. We hope you found this helpful, and thank you.
And it cut off a second early there. So here again, this is Randy. Cancel this. This is Randy Sykes. He has a page on YouTube and does a lot of explanations of Google Classroom. I think his explanations are just absolutely fantastic, and I completely recommend that. So additional resources, go on YouTube, look at Google for Education. That's the official Google site explaining Google Classroom. Again, on YouTube, that Randy Sykes. You can contact me. My email is clifton4@cnm.edu. There's also the DELT team. We do have our DELT website, nmdelt.org, and if you go nmdelt.org/meet the team members, then you can see the entire DELT team, and we are all here to help. So before we go on to the Quality Matters rubric, does anyone have questions at this point? And if you do, please type those into your chat box.
You can also feel free to unmute yourself if you have a really quick question.
Okay, fantastic. Let's go ahead and move forward then. And keep in mind there's a lot to Google Classroom. It could just go on for hours and hours, everything it can do. So I'm going to go ahead and click out of this slideshow. I'm going to go ahead and close out of YouTube, and I'm actually going to come back over here to our classroom. So here, so start here, overview of Google Classroom. Now that we've done that, we can move on to our second step, the overview of Quality Matters. I haven't done a great job here of saying, okay, once you've done this, move on to the next one. So that is something you want to be sure to include in your courses. Make sure the students understand, okay, what do I do first? Once that's done, what do I do second? That is something we'll be talking about. So, and again, this I have in here as an assignment, so it has a due date, as opposed to this was down here as an announcement, so there is no due date. So linking in things from Google Docs, I have another slideshow here, so I'm going to go ahead and click it and open it. Close out my previous one. So now that last one was only 4 slides long, and if you remember the 4 slides, I can see the whole thing in the preview. You see this one, I get, whoops, there was a problem loading this page. This one is so long, I'm not going to be able to see it on the preview. So you may want to make sure that your students know they need to open it with slides. So I'm going to come up here, I'm going to say open with Google Slides. I click on that, and then I can see the actual slideshow. As in the last one, I'm not going to make this full screen because we seem to be having a glitch there. So this is the overview of Quality Matters. Let me see if I can make this any better. That's as big as I'm going to be able to make it, and that is perfectly fine. We'll work with what we have here. So the overview of Quality Matters. The Quality Matters, it's a standard for online teaching. These are best practices for online and hybrid teaching. So this is a nationwide set of standards. So it's quite in-depth everything that you can learn about Quality Matters. I actually took a 4-credit college class over just Quality Matters, so lots to learn in there, and we're just going to do a very brief introduction, look at the actual standards and kind of some of the substandards within those. It's why Quality Matters. It's here just to improve and certify the design of online and blended courses. When online teaching first came on the scene, I don't think the classes were very good. I was an undergraduate very early in the life of online classes, and a lot of them were quite a joke. Some of them were very good. Some of them were very difficult to navigate. Some of them it was very difficult to get to the content. Some of it is very difficult to use. So this just kind of came about as a way of, hey, this is what a class should look like. It's going to be easy to navigate and easy to work with in an online environment. And NMDELT is currently working on a more in-depth Quality Matters training. It's going to be something on demand through Google Classroom. Today's webinar is essentially the foundation of that, and we're going to develop it from here to include quizzes and that kind of thing. So let's see. So we have 8 Quality Matters standards. So you have the course overview and introduction, the learning objectives, assessment and measurement, instructional materials, learner interaction and engagement, course technology, learner support, and accessibility. So the idea here is if you are creating a sound distance learning class, you should be taking all 8 of these standards into account. We're going to look at them all in more detail. I'm going to come down here to the first standard. That is the course overview and introduction. And so I'm going to go through the substandards here. I will have a link at the end of this presentation where you can see how to access the full set of standards online. So standard 1, you want to be sure that you have clear instructions about getting started in navigation. If you remember in Google Classroom, I said start here down on that first module. That's typically how colleges will do it, is that they'll have something that they try to highlight. This is where you begin, and that gives them more information from there. You want to explain the purpose and the structure of the course. You know, purpose in terms of what are we doing here. If you're teaching math, your purpose might be to teach a certain amount of GED math content. Structure, that's talking about when are due dates, are there quizzes, are you assigned some sort of letter grade, how are you counting participation, just all of these different structure things. Netiquette, that is rules of interaction within the class. You know, no obscenities, it could be a whole lot of things. And if anyone is interested in seeing my individual netiquette policy, I'm happy to share that. Please shoot me an email. Or if anyone would like resources about best practices in terms of netiquette, also please feel free to shoot me an email and I can share more on that. You want clear policies related to both the course and the institution. You don't necessarily have to write the policies for the institution into the course, but you want to have some sort of link to the institution's website. Say, hey, these are some of the distance learning standards, if those kind of policies and procedures do exist within the institution. If they don't, I would suggest speaking with your supervisor and getting kind of a rough sketch to share with students. You want to let students know about the minimum technical skills. In general, I don't think students will sign up for a hybrid or distance learning class without a minimum amount of technical skills. However, you do get those students who sign up for it and come in knowing nothing about the computer. Either they didn't know, or they just think this is also an opportunity to learn about the computer. So you want to be sure they have access to resources that can help them with the technical skills. I do also want to caution you as an instructor and make sure you don't become just an IT technical support person. Those kind of things, you want to help with basic issues that come up, but you don't want to find yourself just spending hours and hours on this kind of thing. Maybe something to refer the student to outside resources, be that YouTube, be that something within your college or the organization you're working for. You want an appropriate instructor self-introduction. I recommend having a picture of yourself, maybe even have a video introduction. Try to humanize yourself. Let the students know you are indeed a real-life human being within professional boundaries, of course. And then give a place for student introductions. Let the students share a little bit about themselves. As the instructor, however, you do need to be sure you're moderating that and making sure the students are maintaining healthy boundaries with one another. Standard 2, this is where you share the learner objectives. You want measurable learning objectives and outcomes. You want to say you need to complete this to be considered successful. You want within the module to describe how you are working towards the course objectives. So if you have course objectives, if you have the outcomes spelled out from the beginning, you want to be expressing in the module what you're doing to help prepare the students to be successful at those. Your learning objectives need to be clear and written from the student's perspective. I think it's very good to develop a large vocabulary within our students and encourage them to develop their vocabulary. However, learning objectives and instructions are not the place to develop vocabulary. These are not the places for what's called $10 words. You want to try to keep your wording pretty simple in terms of objectives and instructions. You want them to be very easy to read. If you want to teach vocabulary, please do that within the actual lesson. Let's see, instructions to meet the learning objectives are clear. You want it to be very clear to the student in terms of if you do this, then you will be considered to meet the learning objective. Again, everything needs to be very measurable, and you want objectives appropriate to the course level, of course, and the content as well. The third standard is assessment and measurements. Assessment should state the learning objectives, and they should be consistent with what you've been doing in class. I think these things are good practices regardless of a distance learning format. So always keep in mind something I've tried to say throughout all these webinars. Good teaching is good teaching. We're not changing the way you teach necessarily. We're changing the way you present the information and where the students are able to work. You want descriptive criteria for the evaluation of student work. That's where you want to have a really sound rubric. You also want to be very clear about participation, about what is considered participating in class, what is going to be the point that the students are dropped if your organization has those types of policies. Assessment should be sequenced. They should be appropriate to the student work. And students should have multiple opportunities to assess their own learning. One nice thing about these programs is you can give very quick feedback to the student. Plato and Common Core Achiever are both very nice about that because sort of teach the student the concept of self-assessment, self-monitoring. Your instructional materials, again, just like in any class, they need to contribute to what you're trying to teach the students. You need to be clear about your purpose. You need to have good citations. One thing to watch out for is instructional materials need to be current. I think when you first come in and create your Google Classroom and create this online environment, everything will be very current. What I've seen teachers do, though, is they just continue to use the same shell semester after semester after semester. There's not necessarily anything wrong with that, but if you are using your same shell semester after semester, be watching for things that are outdated. For example, Plato does update, interfaces change. Make sure your information is current on all of that. Make sure you're looking for the best resources that are out there. For example, 5 years ago for webinars like this, I would have been using a program called Wimba, and it seems like around 2009, 2010, that was taking over, and that's barely around anymore. It's not very current. And so if I had something like that in a course shell, I would want to be sure and take that out, have something more current, such as the Google Hangouts that we're using here. You want a variety of perspectives on course content. The internet provides a wealth of opportunities for that. And you want to make sure that there's a distinction between required and optional materials. Khan Academy is one thing I like quite a bit. If you're not familiar with Khan Academy, I would suggest going to the nmdelt.org website and looking at some of the tech talks. This month we actually had a very good one on Khan Academy. But let them know, something like Khan Academy would be optional. It would just be if they need additional support. It's not something they have to do. See our fifth standard, learner engagement and interaction. My philosophy of teaching is that students can learn quite a bit from each other, both being in the role of a teacher and also being in the role of a student asking another student questions. You want to be sure there's some interaction, both learner to learner and learner to teacher. Sometimes students will tell me they take online courses and it feels like there's no teacher presence, and that is not what you want. You want to be very visible. You want the students to know that, yeah, there is a teacher, there is someone here for support. So your activities need to promote the learning objectives. They need to contribute to that, be that discussion board postings, be that journal, be that private emails or messages. You want opportunities for interaction that support active learning. The active learning process within the internet, that can be very nice in terms of searches that they have to have them getting out and looking for things on the internet. You might even try that as group work to facilitate student-to-student interaction. As an instructor, you want to be very clear about response time and feedback. One thing in online classes is sometimes students do have unrealistic expectations in terms of feedback. They're in the computer working, they're used to Plato giving them instant feedback, and they might expect the same from you, for you to respond to them immediately. My policy is I will respond Monday through Friday within 24 hours. I will respond on the weekend within 48 hours. And I will give feedback on assignments within 7 to 10 business days. Now, I know those seem a bit long. However, I'm giving myself a little bit of wiggle room in case I'm having glitches with the technology, in case I get very busy. Does it ever take me 48 hours to respond to an email? No. I really don't think I've ever made a student wait that long. Does it take me 10 business days to get an assignment back to a student? No. I sincerely believe I've never taken that long. However, it's just letting the students know these boundaries are in place. And sometimes your institution will have a program for something like that, sort of a policy in place already. Standard 6 is, of course, technology. You want to be sure the tools and media relate to the learning objectives. If you're teaching math, you don't want to have students doing a scavenger hunt about history, most likely. Could probably integrate that. I've seen a lot of creative things, but just be sure you're not just using technology for the sake of it being fancy technology and trying to impress people. You want to be sure that the content is there. And, you know, guided student activity, you want to be sure the students aren't just out working with no direction. You want to be sure your navigation is very logical, consistent, and efficient. In the video they talked about in Google Classroom how the feed can become a little bit clogged. You just want to be sure things are easy to get to. And you want to be sure that your technologies are current there again. Now here in terms of students can readily access required technologies, there you want to be sure you're not requiring softwares that that students don't have access to. For example, you wouldn't want to require something involving Photoshop. Your students probably aren't going to have access to that. However, you could require something involving Google Pixlr. That is more the free version. So be sure that you're not asking your students for unreasonable technologies that they can't access. Standard 7, that's going to be learner support. You don't necessarily have to type this in. You may just want a link. If you have an institution page about tutoring, you might just provide a link to that. Same thing with the accessibility policies. You might provide a link to that, including how to access support. You don't want students with disabilities in your class to feel like they have nowhere to turn to. You want to be very clear to them about, hey, this is where you can turn if you do need the support, and also, you know, give some kind of link to the students' support services within the institution, whatever those may be. Standard 8, looking at accessibility. Accessible technologies. Plato is actually very good on that. Plato can work with reader technologies. You don't want super fancy things that could come into a problem there. If you're ever unsure about whether or not something would work with in terms of accessibility, please feel free to reach out to myself or else someone in IT within your institution. Courses should contain alternatives to auditory and visual content. Note, this is already provided in Plato and Common Core Achieve. They've invested pretty heavily in that kind of thing. And then you want a design that facilitates readability, minimizes distraction. You don't want to pick some crazy bubble font that's really difficult to read. You don't want a lot of really flashy graphics. Kind of over the years, as both a student and someone who reviews online courses, I see courses sometimes where there's unicorns dancing around the page with fairies and that kind of thing. Nothing wrong with that. If you have those kind of technical skills, that's really awesome. I completely support that. But there again, you're here to teach. You're not here to wow the students with your technical skills. And those things can be quite distracting. If you have a lot of stuff flashing, a lot of colors, it can be kind of hard to say, okay, what is the information I need from this page? And that is ultimately what it's about. Also, overcomplicating your page, having too many flashing graphics, too many colors, that kind of thing, can also have some problems with the assistive technologies. So if you notice here on my presentation, I try to keep it pretty basic. I don't have a lot of things jumping off the page at you. So see, if you want to know more or if you need assistance, you know, please keep in mind the master teachers are here to help. There are 7 of us, and we're available here at our website, www.nmdelt.org. We provide support related to distance education, hybrid education, Plato, Common Core Achieve, Google Classroom, Google Docs, Quality Matters. You know, really, I think anything technology related that's going to support your classroom, we're willing to help you with. Our website, nmdelt.org, I'm going to come here to a new tab, nmdelt.org. If you come down here to meet the team members, here is all of our team members, and we are all available to help you guys. So please feel free to use this as a resource. Here's mine. If you notice, most of us will have our email. There's mine, the ccliftonfortsenium.edu. The Hangouts is also very nice too, and I know Barbara is using it. I think a couple of us are using it. It's essentially where you can text message without giving out your phone number. That can be really nice for students. And then there's also my phone number if you need to reach me. But again, we have the entire team that is available to help you with whatever your needs may be. And here again, if you want to access Google Classroom, you're only going to be able to do that through an nmdelt.org domain. You're not necessarily going to be able to do that through a Gmail account, even though it is Google. So if you're interested in that, please email Jamie at nmdelt.org. She was our facilitator today, and we have our next student engagement webinar scheduled tentatively for Friday, September. Well, that didn't show up on there. It's going to be Friday, September 11th is when we're tentatively scheduled for the next one. I am planning to talk about unconditional positive regard as a student engagement techniques. Please keep in mind Google Classroom here is the platform for practicing these student engagement techniques. And then here I just want to share with you my sources, qualitymatters.org. That's where you can learn more about Quality Matters. You can see the full rubric, lots of training documents there, just all kinds of stuff available related to qualitymatters.org, these best practices in distance education. So, questions or comments about anything today? And if you do have questions or comments, please be sure to unmute yourself, or you can type in the chat box.
There are no questions in the chat box.
Okay. Thank you.
I think that worked. Yeah. No, we don't have any questions here, Cash. I think we got all that.
Okay. Fantastic.
Thank you, Nick.
Let's see, and I can't see who all's with us. I believe we only have the one group. Is that correct, Jamie?
Correct. Barbara did get kicked off. She's watching the broadcast, but wouldn't be able to chat a question unless it was on Hangouts, but I have not gotten a Hangout message either. So there are no questions.
Okay, so I'm going to say, Barbara, if you think of any questions, you have access to my Google Hangout, contact me there, or shoot me an email. To the rest of you, same thing. If you do think of something later, feel free to shoot me an email or contact me. So thank you so much for attending today's student engagement presentation, and I hope to see everyone again in September.
Thank you all very much.
And like us on Facebook if you have not already.
Yes.
NM Delt.